Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev addresses Mayotte and France's handling of the crisis. In an interview with Dmitry Kiselev, the Director General of the Rossiya Segodnya news agency, the president calls out French President Emmanuel Macron's regime and says that it's turning France into a failed state. Furthermore, he points out that France was already bid adieu by countries like Niger, Burkina Faso, and Mali. The Azerbaijani president also discusses NATO-Russia tensions, foreign influence in the Caucasus, and shifting political alliances.
From NATO-Russia relations to the shifting dynamics in the Caucasus and the EU's involvement in the region, Azerbaijan's President Ilham Aliyev has addressed a wide range of issues in an interview with the Rossiya Segodnya news agency, highlighting the country's evolving role in global and regional geopolitics. Discussing critical global and regional matters, he noted that while NATO and Russia remain locked in tense relations, Azerbaijan is committed to stability and dialogue, positioning itself as a neutral partner to facilitate communication between opposing sides.
The experience of Mr. Trump's first presidential term, as well as the statements made by him and members of his team during and after the election campaign, allow us some hope. Therefore, imagining a scenario where NATO and Russia engage in a hot war would be akin to imagining a global apocalypse. It is clear that there would be no winners in this war and no countries. Even those far from NATO or Russian territories would feel safe. I believe there is enough political wisdom in Washington, Moscow, and other capitals to prevent such a nightmare scenario from materializing. I also believe that Azerbaijan can contribute to détente, a slightly forgotten word that is now making a return in international discussions.
President Aliyev described Armenia's growing military cooperation with France as a direct threat to Azerbaijan's security, warning of the potential consequences of offensive weapon deliveries from France, India, and the United States. He also sharply criticized the actions of French President Emmanuel Macron and the EU's foreign policy chief, Josep Borrell. Additionally, Aliyev criticized the French government's activities in Africa, particularly in the Sahel region, as well as its role in the Middle East.
Euronews вчера передает. 75% населения острова Mayotte.
Euronews reported yesterday that 75% of the population of the island of Mayotte lives below the poverty line, and 30 to 40% of housing is dilapidated. This is legally French territory. Although it is part of the Comoro Islands, France illegally holds it. By what right? During the riots in New Caledonia, 13 people were killed, over 100 were injured, and more than 1,000 were arrested. The leaders of the popular protests were taken to France and are held in custody. This is Macron's dictatorship, his regime. When I speak about these issues, all their watchdogs in the form of non-governmental organizations or the media are unleashed against me. So while we, the Azerbaijani public, began to highlight this issue, the situation is now much more serious. Naturally, our hearts are with these people who have been denied all rights. What can be said about New Caledonia when in the center of Europe, in Corsica, the Corsican language is banned in public places? Is this democracy? Are these human rights? France may have once been a great country of great thinkers, scientists and writers, but it is no longer the case. Macron's regime is turning France into a failed state. I'll give you examples. Failure in Africa, the Sahel region. They were told adieu by countries like Niger, Burkina Faso and Mali. Next is Chad, which has already asked them to leave, and Senegal, where a national spirit president has come to power.
Highlighting Azerbaijan's military readiness, President Aliyev stated that the country has achieved a high degree of operability in military operations, which he considers a crucial factor for maintaining stability in the Caucasus.
Сегодняшний мир И то, как развиваются события,
Today's world and the way events are unfolding is further evidence that the world has changed dramatically. The realities that were created and the rules of the game defined by the results of World War II no longer work. Even global actors are not hiding it. The power factor is once again coming to the forefront of political aspirations, and countries that realize this sooner than later can feel safer today, although no country can feel completely safe in today's world.
может себя чувствовать в полной безопасности.
Expressing significant concern, he reiterated that the military support Armenia is receiving from countries like France, India, and the United States poses a direct threat to Azerbaijan's security. He called for an end to the arming of Armenia.
Это означает непосредственную угрозу.
This is a direct threat, which we have communicated both publicly and privately to the Armenian Prime Minister. We have expressed our concerns to France, to the United States, which under the Biden administration has shifted its balanced approach towards the South Caucasus, favoring Armenia. We have many examples showing that these threats are serious. The offensive weapons France is supplying to Armenia pose a practical threat to Azerbaijan. Given that our border with Armenia is more than 1,000 kilometers long, with many settlements near the border and former refugees returning to these areas, we cannot be passive observers. We have repeatedly told Armenia and its patrons in the US State Department that this must stop. But unfortunately, the arming of Armenia continues at an alarming pace.
Глубины армянской территории это сделать сегодня не так-то сложно.
Turning to Azerbaijan's neighbor, Georgia, President Aliyev voiced apprehension over foreign interference, particularly from Western-backed NGOs. He stressed Azerbaijan's commitment to stability in Georgia, underlining the peaceful and long-standing relationship between the two nations.
В Грузии вижу, что ситуация стабилизируется.
In Georgia, I see that the situation is stabilizing, and we are pleased with this. Georgia is an important partner and a close friend. Our nations have lived in peace for centuries. Therefore, instability in Georgia harms both Georgia and Azerbaijan. For our part, we are doing everything to ensure Georgia's stability and successful development. Turning to foreign influence, we know that thousands of NGOs operate in Georgia, funded by the West. The people working in these organizations number in the tens of thousands. We understand what this means. We too had a period in Azerbaijan when grant eaters and grant givers flourished, but we stopped that. Now any grants, whether from Azerbaijan or abroad, must be registered and relevant authorities must decide whether to approve them.
In his remarks, President Ilham Aliyev portrayed Azerbaijan as a resilient and strategic actor in an increasingly complex global landscape. By confronting foreign interference and criticism, Azerbaijan continues to assert its sovereignty, positioning itself as a pivotal force for stability in the Caucasus and beyond.